Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to my Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building the world of Brindleton Bay, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack The Sims 4 Cats and Dogs, and I'm going to be building a Hamptons inspired, almost like shopping district, but this time round using custom content. So first things first, I really hope you've got yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and if you haven't, go grab one. I've personally got myself a currently piping hot cup of tea, but I reckon by the time I finish this voiceover it would have gone cold, because this video is quite a lengthy one. But recently we got the launch of the brand new expansion pack for The Sims 4, which is called Businesses and Hobbies EP, and pretty much now your Sims can run or purely just visit any type of small business. But with this you can have multiple different venues just on the one lot. Now so far with this new expansion pack I've built a pottery studio that also had like a little retail section, and there was also a tattoo parlour attached to it. I've also built a art gallery museum that had like a little section where Sims, if they wanted to, they could visit it and they could take a painting class. I have also built a hostel which Sims would be able to stay in, which can I just say is very different from this build. But pretty much with this new expansion pack there is so many different build opportunities, and so far all of the different things I've built using this new EP has just been with paid DLC. And so this week I just thought it'd be really fun to sit down and do kind of like a small business shopping district, if you want to class it as that, but build it using custom content. I am so happy and just so extremely proud of this one build. In total, this whole entire video, like from start to finish, took me 4.5 days, and so I just put so much time and I tried to make this lot just to be absolutely perfect for your Sims to visit and do multiple different things, which I will get on and tell you about. But yeah, I'm really happy and proud of it, and so I really hope you like it as well. But anyway, getting on and actually talking a little bit more about the build itself and also what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I'm currently coming in and playing around with some signposts and like some sign banners on the first, I want to say, lump of buildings. Now I haven't even said it so far, but basically on this lot there ends up being 6 different venue types that your Sims can visit and interact with, and all of them have some sort of gameplay opportunity that's a little bit different from the other ones. Now in total, and I will give you a little bit more information about them, but there ends up being a florist or a flower shop. There is also quite a luxurious clothing boutique, which I tried to make it like a Ralph Lauren inspired clothing boutique, and then also a farmer's market. Then there ends up being a cafe with like a lovely outdoor seating area. There's also a pottery studio and retail store alongside with the final building, which ends up being a nail salon. Now I know you're probably thinking that's a lot, and I know you're probably also wondering if it is actually going to be functional. I promise you, with my hand on my heart, I have playtested this whole entire build so thoroughly. It took me around about 3.5 hours just to playtest the build. And when I say playtest, I playtested absolutely every single nook and cranny of this build. Where I'm building a small business lot type, I tested it in 2 different ways. The first time I tested it to be just like a bog standard residential building. The reason why I did that is because I wanted to make sure that every single seat worked, every single mirror worked, everything that your Sims will be able to interact with when you click on it will be able to function. And I playtested it to be a residential to start off with, because truth be told, I just didn't want customers coming in when my Sims was, going to all the different toilets and stuff like that. And so I tested it to be a residential, lovely jubbly, no issues there. But then I also tested it to be a small business lot type. Now with a small business, if you do decide to open one yourself, you can kind of assign different tasks, if you want to put it that way, that you want customers to do when they visit the venue. So say for example, if you're building a tattoo parlour, one of the activities that probably is a good idea to set aside would be make it so Sims that visit this lot will want to get tattooed. They would like to either get tattooed or they would like to tattoo someone else. There is multiple different things that you can do, and where I spent so long playtesting, I have noted down all the different tasks that I've personally found work best for gameplay for this lot, kind of taking into consideration all the different areas, because like I said, we've got 6 different buildings and they're all quite different from one another, but I made it so all the different assigned tasks kind of cater to each individual building. So the first one that I noted down was do spa activities. Now, where there is a nail salon on this lot, I knew that I needed to have some sort of assigned task purely for that little area, and with this assigned role to the customers, Sims will come here and they can ask for a manicure, they can ask for a pedicure. If they want to, they can also get a foot rub or get their hands rubbed, but I was more so picturing that the nail salon would purely be a nail salon and not so much a massage parlour. But honestly, in your gameplay you can do whatever you fancy. But yeah, I noted down to have Sims do spa activities. The second role I assigned was drink coffee for the cafe. There is also a few other options that I could have done for the cafe area. There is like drink tea and I think a few other like bits and bobs like that, but I found to get the most use out of this lot, if I just assign it just the cafe to have drink coffee, then other random Sims or other random customers will attend the cafe, they'd get themselves maybe a latte, maybe Americano, whatever they fancy, and yeah, it worked quite nicely. Of course, you can also set aside other roles for the cafe, but I felt like one was just enough for my own personal gameplay in a way. But then the next one that I noted down was browse and buy items, which this role that I assigned, or this task I assigned to customers, kind of lends itself perfectly, not to only one lot, but multiple different lots in this build. Now, like I said, out of the 6 buildings, we have a flower shop, a clothing shop, a farmer's market, a cafe, a pottery, studio and shop, and then also a nail salon. With the browse and buy items, Sims would go into the florist, they'd go into the clothing boutique, they'd go into the farmer's market, they would also go into the pottery studio, and in them areas, Sims would try, actively buy something. And so the browse and buy items is one of them like multi-use tasks, which it's kind of perfect for this build. But then the last 2 that I noted down tie in really lovely with the pottery studio, and I put down as the roles for customers to attend classes and lectures and then also do some pottery. Now, of course, like always, if you want to download this build, you can change up the different tasks that you want customers to do. Just, I thought it would be quite handy for me to tell you from my own like playtesting gameplay experience which ones that I found worked best for this venue. But of course you can like download this build and you can change it to be, if you want Sims to maybe have a cup of tea when they go to the cafe, you can change that. But I just thought it'd be kind of nice for me to tell you, because like I said, I spent like 3.5 hours just playtesting this build, and I playtested it as both a customer but then also an owner. Also, by the way, something that I wanted to note, there is no apartment on this small business lot type. So far, all the different venues that I've been building with this new expansion pack have had some sort of like living quarters attached to them. For this one, honestly, I just felt like for gameplay purposes, it might be a bit better if it's just purely all commercial buildings. If you wanted to, of course, you could maybe change the upstairs of one of them and make it into a small little apartment. But for my own personal gameplay preference for this type of lot, I just felt like it would be nicer to have it all just be commercial lots rather than have like a random apartment upstairs. I will get on shortly when I move on into the furnishing and tell you more about the individual buildings, because some of the different areas, like the farmer's market for example, I have included some miniature mods in the inside of it, which I'm just so happy with, because I wanted this lot to be functional and I wanted to give your Sims a purpose to, actively go through a loading screen and visit this venue type. But I will get on and talk about that when I actually move on into the inside. But currently, as you can see, I'm now coming in and pretty much just figuring out the exterior for the 4th building. Now you can see I built them 3 buildings, did basically the exterior decorations and then flipped them to the left hand side. And for the cafe, I pretty much came into this build already knowing that this was going to be pretty much like dead center to the lot. Now for this one, like I said, this build took me like 4.5 days to do. I actually drew it out on a bit of pen and paper before I even entered build and buy mode, which I will pop my quite bad drawing, bear with me, it's very rough, and if you look at the building shapes, don't worry, they don't end up being exactly like that. But basically I had this idea in my mind and I could kind of envision it of how it was going to be laid out, and so I drew down on a bit of paper where I wanted all the individual venues to be. And if you look at it, you can see at the back I've noted down that it says like docks and sea view, and both on the left hand side and the right hand side of the lot there's access points. pretty much where I'm building in the world of Brindleton Bay has got the most beautiful views of like the seaside yacht area behind the lot. And for the cafe, I really wanted to try and make it so when your Sims visit here, like they would go and sit out in the little cafe garden, have a mocha or whatever, and they can drink their coffee while overlooking like the Dockland area. I pretty much just wanted to make as much use of this lot as I could, and so yeah, I purposely made it so the cafe's like outdoor seating would be having beautiful views, but then for the access points, pretty much the lot that I'm building on has 2 different access points on both the left hand side and the right hand side at the back of the lot. Must admit, they don't really go down to much. One of them goes down to like a little wooden dock area. There should be a fishing sign there, but they didn't place one in the world, or at least in my world, there is no fishing sign there, but there is a harvestable tree that your Sims can get, I think, lemons from. But then the other one, it's just an access point to get kind of like a shortcut to the yacht club, which is kind of like the Brindleton Bay's version of a bar where your Sims can go for a drink. To be honest, the access points were a little bit silly, but I just didn't want to build this lot and be just completely building central. Like, I wanted there to be some like airy bits in between, and so the way that I built it, yeah, I built like a clump of 3 buildings, which I've already done. Left a little bit of space, a little bit of, if you want to class it as, wiggle room on the back end of the left hand side building, and then with that space I end up placing down a little ticket kiosk, which if your Sims fancy, they can buy supplies from. Your Sims can also use the loo or toilet there. Your Sims can just do like random bits and bobs, but also it's just like a nice airy bit of space so everything just doesn't feel so claustrophobic. But then I built the cafe, which currently over here I'm just decorating almost like the entrance into the cafe. I end up placing down some beautiful white hydrangeas. I placed down like a little signpost and a beautiful tree as well. But now moving over, you can see that I've now started coming in and building the last 2 remaining buildings, which the tall one, I say the tall one, the one that's got 2 levels, that ends up being the pottery studio, and the little one ends up being the nail salon. Don't think I mentioned it, but for the other 3 buildings on the left hand side, the closest one to the edge of the lot ends up being the florist, the middle building ends up being the clothing boutique, and the one that has a little bit of wiggle room near the back end of the lot, that ends up being the farmer's market. I really hope that makes sense, and I really hope that was easy enough to follow along with, but if not, hopefully my quite dreadful drawing that I mapped out before I came into this build will hopefully give you a general gist of how everything's laid out. But either way, moving on, as you can see, I'm now coming in and figuring out kind of like the colour scheme that I wanted to go for these last 2 remaining buildings. Now for this build, coming into it, I really wanted it to feel very luxurious, very almost like prestigious. I don't know about you, but for me, Brindleton Bay is one of my most favourite worlds to, one, build in, but then also to play in. And I must admit, and I feel actually quite selfish even saying this, but one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this build is I actually plan on using this in my own personal gameplay, and in my own personal gameplay, Brindleton Bay is the Hamptons. And so when it came round to building this lot, I wanted it to really feel like your Sims were in the Hamptons somewhere. And so when it came round to, okay, what wallpaper am I going to use? What colour windows am I going to use? What are the kind of decorations going to be? I wanted it to be kind of like light, airy, and a little bit coastal. And I mean, I feel like this is just kind of like a universal experience maybe, but to me, navy is just so Hampton, so coastal. And so when it came around to doing this build, I made it so 2 of the buildings are both navy. They are slightly different because one of them, the cafe, the one that's kind of like dead centre, I use like bog standard like sliding for that one. That one's navy. But then you see the little smaller navy building, that on the inside ends up being the nail salon, and it's the same tone of navy, but it's like them shingly things. Do you know what I'm on about? We don't really have that many things of them in the game, but there's like a shingle sliding that's navy, and just a sliding that's navy. And I don't want to be too repetitive, but you know, I used 2 different navy wallpapers. And then you see the brick building over here. This brick is from Pierre Sim's Domain collection. I used it on the Pottery studio, which you can see probably from the little sign that I moved objects, that building on the right hand side, that ends up being the Pottery. But then I also used it on the exterior of the clothing boutique. And then for the farmer's market, that is kind of like tucked away in the left hand corner, I use a grey sliding, which I know I probably could have used baby blue, but I knew in my mind that I would probably add some baby blue details onto the signpost of that, and I didn't want to go too blue. And so I thought, all right, if I use a grey wallpaper, it kind of ties in quite nicely with the coastal if I use like a blue heading. Hopefully when I spin the camera and you can see it properly, you're going to get my gist and you're going to understand what I mean. But yeah, that wallpaper is by Peacemaker. And then the last building is the Florist, and for that one I used a cream wallpaper, and it's actually just the same wallpaper that I used on the cafe but just in a different colour swatch. But you can see by this point I've now started coming in and really adding in this finer details onto the exterior of this lot. So you can see I've already placed down some little like drain areas onto what I was making to look like a pretend pavement. In reality, I just put this lot on one platform and just raised it up by one. This way Sims can still step over it, but to me, that looks like a pavement. And so I placed down like a little drain to make it look like, if it does, you know, rain in Brindleton Bay, which, personal experience, it rains here quite a lot, but if it does rain, the water's got somewhere to go. I also placed down some street lamps. The ones that I've used are from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. They're already in the world, and so it's kind of like made sense in my mind to use them, so they kind of fit into the neighbourhood. But over here as well, as you can see, I placed down some little flowers outside one of the shops, and then also that little like sign outside the nail salon, which to me, I always think looks like an eyelash tech's sign outside of their little shop. I mean, your Sims can't actually go and get their eyelashes done in the game. That's not really a thing. But, you know, in real life, sometimes you can go to an eyelash tech and you can get, like, individuals put in or clusters. Me personally, I've had them before, but I just rub my eyes too much, and so I'm a strip lash girly. But yeah, I always think whenever I see that sign, it looks like it belongs to an eyelash technician or something. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on to furnishing outside of the farmer's market. So you see out here, I placed down that little kind of, I want to say wheelbarrow kind of looking object, and I placed down some little scales, a like bag of potatoes. I also placed down some little jams and a tip jar, but then also placed down some boxes of what looks to be fruit and vegetables. I do end up changing the fruit and vegetables on that little stand purely because when it came around to doing this build, I wanted to really make this feel like your Sims were visiting some sort of shopping district that had, you know, a farmer's market, a florist, a pottery section, a nail salon. I wanted there to be as much realism as I could possibly add into this build. And so I did do a little bit of CC downloading before I came in and started filming, but I downloaded some CC of fruit and vegetables, which for my own personal preference was a little bit too alpha for my liking. By the way, alpha is a term for more like realistic custom content in the game. I'm personally someone that prefers Maxis Match CC rather than, yeah, Alpha CC. But yeah, I placed down some fruit and vegetables on that little like stall section, and the ones that I used, they were just looking like they were in my fridge downstairs, and so I do end up deleting them and replacing them with some in-game fruit and vegetables, and so they match with the aesthetic a little bit better. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now come in and started decorating the exterior of the cafe. So out here I placed down loads of different seating areas. I mixed in both tables and chairs, but then also some like really comfy looking sofas. I didn't try to clutter up this lot too much, and hopefully you're going to see that as we go throughout the build process, because I'm thinking it's a community lot and I really want it to be easy for gameplay. And so when it comes around to clutter in this build, I did purposeful clutter, but then really tried to keep it to a minimum. And so like on the outside seating area, I think I placed down one individual pair of sunglasses that someone might have left there, but for the most part, yeah, I tried to keep it really neat and sophisticated. It just kind of made it feel a little bit more luxury to me anyway. But either way, besides the point, moving over, as you can see, I've actually now moved on into the furnishing, and I'm starting off with the first building on the right hand side, which is the nail salon. In here, I must admit, I did do a little bit of CC shopping for also this room as well, because I really wanted it to feel luxurious in here, and where I knew that I wanted it to be somewhere where your Sims can come and get manicures and pedicures, it would have to have the massage chair that we got from the Spa Day game pack. But the thing is, up until literally this week, I didn't have any CC of that. And so I did a little bit of CC shopping, and I have found one of the best CC collections for like a spa day add-on. It's called I'm going to butcher this, apologies, Keratin set. It's by Baby Girl 123 and then also Lilac Creative. It is the most beautiful CC set for a nail salon. It's actually perfect. It's actually not meant to be for a nail salon. In fact, it's meant to be for a hairdresser's, which I think Keratin is actually a shampoo brand or a conditioner brand or something. Can't lie to you, I've literally been using the same shampoo and conditioner, no joke, for maybe about the last 11 years. It's the Kirkland one that you get from Costco. Don't judge it until you try it. It's really good. Well, I say that. Take it with a pinch of salt. I think it's really good. This is not an ad, by the way. I just really like their shampoo and conditioner. And I did say Kirkland, by the way. The same company that makes sausages and rotisserie chickens. They also have a banging shampoo and conditioner. But yeah, apparently there is meant to be a in real life brand called Keratin that is like a shampoo and conditioner brand. And this CC collaboration is, yeah, basically like a hair salon CC pack, but it also works perfectly for a nail salon. I was debating at one point making this into a hairdresser's rather than a nail salon, but I'm just thinking for gameplay purposes, and this is where I'm a little bit selfish because I am planning on using this in my own personal gameplay, but for me personally, I know that I would personally prefer my Sims to go and get their nails done rather than changing up their hair every other week, because takes me like 20 minutes to decide on a hair when I'm giving my Sims a makeover in CAS. If I'm doing that every single week when my Sims are visiting here, it's a little bit too much work. And so I did decide to opt for a nail salon, but with the CC that I'm going to be linking you in a Google Doc sheet in the description box down below, if you wanted to, you could change this to be a hairdresser's. But for me personally, for gameplay, I just feel like it's kind of more useful to be a nail salon. But either way, in here, as you can see, I placed down some little shelving units at the back. They are from this new CC pack, and then some of the products that I placed down in kind of like the shelves, almost like in a tiered effect, like going from tallest to shortest. They are also from the CC collaboration. I did also place down 2 different sets of armchairs. We have some like more fuzzy ones which are on the other side of the room, but they are from Felix Andre. In my head, they're just kind of like a seating area for Sims that are maybe waiting to get their nails done. There's like no gameplay other than sitting down attached to them. But the other armchairs that is in this room, the ones that I've kind of pulled away from the wall a little bit, they are part of, again, the same Keratin collection, but they're ones that your Sims in gameplay, if they want to, they could come here maybe on a Saturday morning and your Sims can speak to the nail tech and they can get a manicure, they can get a pedicure. Like I said, they can also get a hand massage and a foot massage. Personally, not probably going to do that much of that in my gameplay, but I really like the idea of, yeah, your Sims actually getting their nails done here. I'm personally someone that when it comes around to gameplay, I really like romanticising pretty much every single aspect of my Sims life, and I took a lot of that into consideration when I was doing this lot, especially in like the farmers market and stuff, which I cannot wait to show you the farmers market because it's probably my favourite. Well, actually, I don't know, I love all of them, but it's definitely in my top 3 favourite areas of this whole entire build, because the farmers market alone, I had 1 hour and 20 minutes of just recorded footage for just that one room. It's literally just a little shop where your Sims can buy fresh fruit and vegetables and, you know, other bits and bobs, which we'll get onto and I'll show you that, which I'm excited for. But either way, getting back to actually what I'm doing right now, as you can see, I've now come in and started furnishing the second shop, and this one is the Pottery retail section alongside with the Pottery studio. So in here, again following with the theme that I did in the first shop, the nail salon, I wanted it to be quite light, airy and sophisticated. To be honest, I wanted the whole entire lot to feel like that, but especially in this room, in my head I'm thinking that this is like a really upmarket, really fancy place where your Sims can come and they can buy really fancy china, they can buy really fancy plates. Maybe your Sims that visit here are going to host a dinner party and they want to go like buy special plates for the occasion or something. But in here I did also dabble with the Keratin collection once more. I'm really sorry if I'm pronouncing this like completely wrong, but hopefully it's not the worst pronunciation. But you see this really like long desk that I placed down this little computer onto, that is also from that CC collaboration. It's beautiful. Could not fit in next door, and so I thought, do you know what, I'm going to use it in this room instead. But also in this room as well, I ended up placing down a really big mirror behind the front desk that I placed down like a little sign into. And then I also placed down a series of different, almost like stone pillars in front of the front windows. Now they are from the Spoons collection by Hey Harry, and I end up using that collection quite a lot in this build. By the way, if you're wondering and you've never seen any of my CC builds before in the past, whenever I do CC builds, I link absolutely everything in a Google Doc link in the description box down below, instead of just like shoving it in the description box, which personally I find to be a little bit hard to read. I always like to link you to a Google Doc link, and then that way if you fancy and you want to maybe download all the custom content over maybe a series of a few days or something, you can kind of like bookmark it and then return to it easily. I know when it comes round to downloading custom content for builds like this one, it can sometimes be a little bit of a tedious process, and a lot of people do ask me to share my tray files to it to basically like avoid the downloading process. And the reason why I don't do that is purely because it is actually against a lot of creators' terms of use. I'm someone that whenever I download someone's custom content, I like to read into like their terms of use and stuff, and I've noticed that a lot of the different creators that I tend to download from will say like, please don't include this in some sort of like tray file thing, and I just want to basically just like respect that. I'm really sorry, I know it is a little bit annoying sometimes when I give you a load of CC to download, but at least with the Google Doc link, I try and make it as easy as possible, and yeah, I just want to kind of like respect the creator's terms of use. And also the thing is, if I just give you the CC in like one zip file, not only is it against the terms of use for a lot of the creators that I do have CC from, but then also you then don't get to actually find them on, say for example, Patreon and Tumblr, and these are different places which maybe in the past, and I don't know if I have, but maybe in the past I might have linked someone a piece of content and someone might have really liked the creator and decided that they want to support them, and so I don't want to take away that from them. I'm only saying this because I do get so many questions and like so many different comments of people asking me just to, you know, share the tray files in like one zip download, but I just don't feel comfortable with that, and I just want to respect everyone's, you know, terms of use and stuff, and I never want to re-upload anything and just take anything away from the creators. And so yeah, I link everything in a Google Doc link, and I just try and make it as easy as possible. There is also a key system on the Google Doc link, which if you've seen any of my CC videos before in the past, you probably know about my key system, but again, going back to trying to make it as easy as possible, I will pretty much highlight things that I've previously listed to you in the video that I did before the CC build. That might be a little bit hard to understand. Basically, this CC build, I will have a CC Google Doc link, and I'll have every single individual like CC collaboration or CC pack that I've got linked in this Google Doc link. But then, say for example, in this one, I've highlighted the CC that I've linked to you in my previous CC build, which my last CC build before this one was in December, and I built a huge dream family home in the world of actually Brindleton Bay. Like I said, I love this world, but in that Google Doc link, I would have listed you all these different pieces of custom content, and in my head, a lot of you might have gone and, you know, downloaded that CC, and so to avoid you having to re-download the same things again and again and again, every single time I do a new CC video, I'll basically highlight the collaborations or the CC packs that I would have just previously listed to you, so you don't have to re-download them again. Really hope that's easy to understand. I feel like I've said that so many different times in so many of my different CC videos. I feel like every single time I make it more long-winded what it needs to be, but there's like a little description in the Google Doc link, and you can probably understand it a little bit better over there. But either way, besides the point, moving on and actually getting back to the build, as you can see, I finished the downstairs portion of the Pottery retail section, and now moving on to kind of like the Pottery almost like studio and where your Sims can take a class. So in here, I don't have any CC for a pottery wheel, but the one that we've got from the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack kind of went with the build anyway, and so I plopped them ones down, and then I paired it with the chairs, which I think the chairs that I've used in here are from Felix Andre. And then in the middle, I placed down this really big table, and in my head I'm thinking when your Sims are hosting either a lecture or they're attending a class, they would sit down on that little table area and they would listen. I actually have a CC set which is by Sibulette, and it's called Clay Party. perfect for this particular room. Perfect. Didn't even have to download it, already had it in my game, but I use a lot of it in this build. You see, I've got posters of like pottery, and I've got little like pottery clumps as like decorational pieces. They are all from the clay party set. But in here as well, I placed down one kiln in the corner. Must admit, probably could have done another, but I didn't want to clutter it up with the kiln because there wasn't really that much space in that room, and I wanted your Sims to be able to actively make the pottery, not necessarily put it in the kiln. And I'm just thinking, back to when I was in art in school, we had one kiln, and like we would all take a lesson, and I only did it a few times, bear with, but we would all take a lesson of pottery, and then the teacher would be like, all right, and in at the end of the day, I'm gonna fire it up, and it will just be like one massive kiln. So in my head, it kind of works in reality to have one singular kiln, but if you do fancy, you can definitely place another one down and maybe delete maybe one of the pottery wheels or something. But I was kind of thinking of it as someone that might visit this lot with like a single sim or two sims, and they would maybe try and hog the kiln over the other customers or something. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next shop, and this one is the cafe. So in here, I decided to go for the kitchen counters that we got from, I think it was the spoon set or potentially the octave set. Both of them are by Hey Harry, and where they're the same person that created them, they just seamlessly match. So they're either from the octave set or the spoon set. But I know for sure that the little espresso bar that I placed down, that is from the spoon set. On top of it, I placed down a espresso machine, which it's ones where your Sims can get them like really fancy little coffees. You know, the ones that come in like little small mugs. Get them in there, but that is from, I believe, the Rise and Grind collection. And then also in this little back section, I placed down a shelving unit and tried to really like carefully place some quite neat clutter of like coffee bags and maybe like coffee beans in a tin, and then also some little mugs, as well as them tiny little tea and sauce. I was about to say saucepan then. It's not a saucepan, is it? Saucer. You know, sometimes when you go to a cafe and you decide to eat in, or drink in, depending on what you're getting, but you know, sometimes if you are staying in the establishment, put it that way, they give you like a little fancy teacup, and it's got like a little saucer to kind of like catch all the drips so it doesn't go on the table or something. I don't know, either way, both of them mugs, both the ones with the little like dish underneath it and then the singular ones, they are from the Rustic set by Hey Harry. It's quite a fairly new CC set, and I'm not sure if I've done a CC build with this set in my game yet, but it's lovely. Saying this, I just love everything that Hey Harry comes out with. She's just like such a good CC creator. But also in this little section, something that I wanted to point out, because it's fairly new to me. You see these little paintings that are on almost like the back wall, but they're kind of like leaning. It's two paintings up against each other. They are new to me, and they are from Suki, is how I believe you pronounce it. Quite a fairly new custom content creator in my new catalogue, which I'm yet to actually go down and download every single individual piece of their content. I will be doing that shortly, but they have got some very good stuff. And also the wallpaper, you see the wallpaper in this room, that is also from a CC creator. Beautiful. And this wallpaper comes in so many different swatches. It must be the most swatches on one singular wallpaper that I've got in my game out of all the custom content. There's some lovely like floral ones, there is some more pattern ones. It's just lovely. And the thing that I love about it, and you can't really tell at this point, but you'll notice it in the screenshots, you know, like the little coffee bar section, I use the same wallpaper, but if you look closely, this CC creator thought about it, gave us the version of this wallpaper that has panel on the bottom, which is what I've used for the majority of the cafe area, but down by the kitchen section, there is also a version of the wallpaper that instead of paneling, it's tiles. Perfect for this building. So yeah, I just had to use it. But also in this room as well, I made it so there is also some indoor sofa areas. The sofas that I used in the cafe are from the Woodland Ranch collection by Piero Sim. Now I must admit, I've had this CC set in my game for, well, honestly, pretty much since it came out, but I've never actually flicked through these sofas and given them, honestly, a bit of a chance, because by default, when you're in the build and buy catalogue, the preview image of this sofa is quite leery. It's beautiful, very leery. It's very, well, it's from the Woodland Ranch CC set, so it's meant to be for like a ranch or something. And so the default swatch of it, it's, I believe, orange and red, and it's got loads of different like triangles and squares and stuff on it. But I actually pulled them out when I was doing this room, and I found that if you actually go into the swatches, there's some really lovely neutral ones. And so for, the sofas in this room, I use a 3-seater sofa, a 2-seater sofa, and then one single armchair. It's kind of like the main seating area of the cafe. And then by the front windows, kind of like by the front door, there is also 2 different sets of like the same armchair, but with a little table. And then on the upstairs portion, I do follow it through and use the same ones. In terms of the tables and the chairs that your Sims can, like actively sit at, saying that they can sit on the sofa, but the sofa feels a little bit more uni student, coming to the cafe maybe all day, gonna get a coffee kind of situation, whereas the tables and chairs, I'm imagining maybe families would only pop in for maybe like an hour and grab a coffee or something. But the tables and chairs that I use for the cafe, I use the same ones on the exterior, and the chairs are from, I believe, the Groove set by Felix Andre, and then the tables are from the Paris set, again by Felix Andre. The Paris ones, the ones that kind of got like the lovely little marble top counter or something, but you would have just seen, I also decorated kind of like a little employee space for this cafe. Now I'm thinking, if you do actually want to run this as a small business, or if you want to get Sims to visit here, and maybe you don't want any random Sim going behind the espresso bar, if you wanted to, you can basically make it so only employees will be able to enter that room, and then that way it's the only access point so your Sims can actually get behind the espresso bar. And I wanted there to be some sort of decoration to show, this is maybe potentially the employees' room. When they check into work for morning, they go in there, they maybe take their coat off, maybe change their shoes, maybe they change into an apron. I don't know. I didn't set aside a uniform this lot, but it's definitely something that you can do in your own personal gameplay. But I wanted there to be a little separate section, which if you fancy, you can make it so customers can't really go behind there. But either way, over here, as you can see, I am just coming in and cluttering up this little like shelving unit. It's actually a bookcase, but again, I wanted it to be quite clean and quite sophisticated in the clutter, and so I really tried to hold back when it came around to like cluttering little bookcases or little side table or something, because like I said, I wanted all the clutter in this build to be purposeful and not just look like someone's just thrown it down the shelving unit. But I just finished the downstairs portion, and now I've moved on to the upstairs portion. The upstairs is pretty much the same as the downstairs, I can't lie to you, but there's just a few more tables and chairs, and then I also do add in 2 more armchair situations. But I can't lie, I did purposely place some armchairs in the perfect view of like the sea behind this lot. Like I said, coming into this build, I'd kind of like mapped out that I wanted the cafe to have a beautiful view of like the yacht area where all like the different sailboats are and stuff. And when it came round to thinking about screenshot potential, I wanted to make sure that there was some nice little armchairs kind of like seated in front where your Sims would look out onto like the sea view and stuff. Personally, just because for my own gameplay, I'm a big screenshot kind of person. I've got honestly thousands of screenshots on my computer and also on hard drives just of my Sims gameplay, just because when it comes around to playing the game, I just love taking pictures of just everything that my Sims get up to, and even like random notifications my Sims get, and sometimes they're not the most aesthetic pictures, but I'm a big screenshot player. And so when it came to this build, I was thinking a lot about screenshot potential. Saying that, to be honest, I do that for all of my builds, because not only this one, but I do play in a lot of my own builds that I share for all of you guys. But either way, as well as this on the upstairs portion, I did make it so there is 2 toilets. Now on this lot, this is technically the only place that your Sims could actually physically use the toilet that you can see. However, downstairs, I said I wanted there to be a little bit of airy space and not all of the buildings were so claustrophobic and so like put together. I placed down a little ticket kiosk, and you would have seen it when I placed it down, but it was kind of like this little grey box. It looks like something that was like an add-on for the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. You might notice it in the screenshots because I have taken a few images of it, but basically that ticket kiosk has a toilet attached to it. So your Sims can not only buy supplies, but they can also use a loo. And so technically in the cafe is the only 2 real toilets, so if you want to, you can see your Sims going for a wee, but there is also some toilets kind of outside on the street area, which for some high streets that is quite realistic. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next shop, which is the farmers market. Now like I said, coming into this build, I did do a little bit of CC shopping to kind of make sure that I had everything that I would potentially want and need for this like little retail situation. I don't even know what I'm classing this build as, because I feel like just saying a little miniature like shopping district is kind of underplaying it, because I just feel like there is so much gameplay potential in this build. Maybe that's just me, but I can see myself using this for so long in my own game. But with this build, I did do a little bit of CC shopping beforehand, and like I said, I did download some custom content, but then it ended up leaning more towards the more realistic looking side of things. But then when it actually came round to decorating this farmer's market, I ended up just using CC that I've had in my game, honestly, for years. And the majority of it, and a lot of it that you're going to see me place down on these little shelving units, is by Sim, and it's from the Perfect Pantry collection. There is a few little bits and bobs like dropped into these shelving units that aren't from Sim, but yeah, for the most part, that is where a lot of these different jars and cereal boxes, and even like the Sims version of an Evian bottle, that's where it's from. It's from Sim. I love Sim so much. And again, it's one of them creators that I just love absolutely everything that they come out with. But on these little shelving units, I wanted this farmer's market to feel like some sort of sustainable shop. There is gameplay in here, by the way, which there's actually a few different bits of gameplay in this one particular shop, but I'll tell you about that in a second. But you know, sometimes when you go to maybe like your local high street or something, and kind of like tucked away in the corner, there'll be like a little sustainable shop, and you can walk in there and there'll be loads of different jars of, say, oats and flour and maybe sugar or different types of nuts. And it's basically a shop which you can go in and kind of like bring your own containers, and then you weigh it out on a scales, and then you only buy what you're actually wanting and not loads of different like pieces of plastic and stuff like that. That was the kind of idea that I had for this little shop. And so you can see I placed down so many different jars, so many different like things that your Sims would, in my head, in your game, would kind of like get loads of different spices and maybe different herbs and stuff from. Now, like I said, there is gameplay attached into this build, and a lot of the gameplay is actually on the other side of the wall, and it's not so much attached to this little section. You can see on the actual shelves itself, I've placed down things that look like they've got ingredients inside of them, but to actually purchase the items, I placed down loads of different fruit and vegetables, which I individually placed down into these little baskets, which you'll see in a second. But then also I placed down 2 miniature mods in this little farmer's market, where your Sims can buy anything that they want. So I'm telling you this now, and I'm actually really embarrassed to say this, but this room was a process, alright? Like I had like an hour and 20 odd minutes, hour and 23 minutes to be precise, of recorded footage of just this one room alone. I was so focused and so determined to make this little farmer's market feel as realistic, but then on the same token, not too overpowered with clutter, and I put my all into this little room, and I actually just forgot to add in the mini mods when I was filming. How embarrassing is that? But basically, I have 2 miniature mods, which are now since in the build, and you will see them in the screenshots, but basically make it so this farmer's market, sorry, this farmer's market is actually going to be functional. Sorry, I feel like someone just needed to shift click on me and just reset me just then. But yeah, I have 2 miniature mods that I will pop a picture of when I talk about them respectfully in this build. So if you want to, you can get your Sims to visit this farmer's market and actively buy things like it is a functioning area. So the 2 mods that I've got, the first one is called the Lamazon Marketplace, and this little card, which I end up placing down on like the back wall, you see where that quite big green sign is on the right hand side? I place it down by that. You'll see it in the screenshots. But basically your Sims can check in to this little farmer's market. If they click on that, they can buy medicine, seeds, meat, fish, fruit, vegetable, herb, spices, jam, milk, eggs, like literally anything that you can think of and that you might potentially want to get your Sims from the farmer's market, you can buy from this little Amazon card. You know the Cottage Living expansion pack? You've got the Finchwick that's so hard to say. I'm already stumbling on my words, but we've got the Finchwick Village. I had to pause there. But we've got that little market stall where there is a lady and she sells all these different types of fruit and vegetables and stuff, and it kind of like changes on the daily. I love getting my Sim to go to that market stall on like a Sunday morning or something, go and do their weekly shop for the week. Love it. Like I said, I like romanticising my Sims' lives and stuff. But sometimes my Sims ain't living in Hemphill and Bagley, And to be told, my Sims have actually just moved from Henford and Bagley and they've moved to the world of Brindleton Bay. So I don't want to get my Sims to go from the Hamptons, get on a plane and go to an English village, because to me, that's not realistic. Normally when I play, I like to keep my Sims in the same world and visit the same venues in the world that they live in. My Sims, realistically, if they're living in, say, Brindleton Bay, they're not going to get a phone call from someone saying, do you want to come down to the bar? And it's the one that we got from Silver Dorada. Not very realistic, and it kind of takes out the immersion for me. And so, to me, when I was thinking about building this farmer's market, yeah, the idea in my head was, oh, hang on, I've got this little L'Amazon card, which basically acts the same as the cottage living market stall in the village. I could just place it down into this room, and then, yeah, your Sims could come here and they can click on it and they can pretend that they're shopping in this little, like, vegetable area. I mean, I say vegetable area, you can also do it in the fruit section if you fancy, but yeah, you can actually get your Sims to actively have a purpose to come to this lot. Like I said, I actually wanted to give your Sims a bit of a reason to visit it, and so for every single venue that is in this little, like, complex, I wanted there to be gameplay attached to it. And so, yeah, the first one in this room is the L'Amazon Market card, but then the second one, again, I completely forgot to add it, it's really embarrassing, but the second one that is like a miniature mod that is attached to this build is called a Cake a Break mod. Now basically, you see that I placed down all of them different cakes as decoration and the pastries and stuff. Unfortunately, with a small business, your Sims can't actually sell them, and so there is a miniature mod out there which is called Cake a Break, and basically your Sims can buy loads of different types of cakes. They can buy wedding cakes, they can buy like cheesecakes, and, you know, like all the different cakes that we've got in the game, your Sims can buy from this little pink box. You'll see it in the screenshots, because by this point I did forget to add it in. I never do this. I rarely forget stuff like that, because it's quite important for a build like this, but you're just gonna have to forgive me on this one. Like I said, I spent the past 4 days or 4.5 days building this lot, and I just had a bit of a mind blank when it came around to building this room. The rest of the build isn't like that, don't worry, it's just this one room, and it's ironic because it's one of the ones, like I said, that is, it's in my top 3, this room, just because I just put so much little individual pieces of clutter to make it feel as realistic as I could. Like over here, I'm placing down loads of different potatoes into these little wicker baskets, because these are things that your Sims in game can actually grow and sell in just in the general base game. And so I pop them down into the little like wicker baskets. I also end up placing down some more of them on the little kind of like cart section that is on the right hand side. That is from Ravishing. Also, both of them miniature mods that I've mentioned, they are also from Ravishing as well. But that little like wooden cart, I end up placing down some more fruit and vegetables. And initially I was going to place down berries and stuff, but I noticed when you size up berries in the game, all of them just go like this really weird, almost like alpha-y texture. You'll see what I mean in a second, because when I move over there, I size up some blueberries and I'll start placing them into a basket, and I'm thinking, hang on, this looks a little bit shaky. Why does this not really match the aesthetics of the game? And I think it's because the initial harvest ball is so small. When you size it up, it just looks a bit pixelated, it just doesn't look very nice, but I end up changing it in the end. But over here you can see I just kind of like finished up the little cashier desk section. So behind it, I placed down these new grocery signs for me. It's one of the things I actually downloaded for this build, but there is this like grocery sign CC set. But then saying that, there is also, I believe, a shopping trolley attached, or shopping cart, whatever I call it a shopping trolley, but there is also a little cart attached to it. But it's by Simcoos, and yeah, I purposely downloaded it for this build. But you know, I popped it kind of like behind the little desk area where your Sims could like pretend to check out or something. I do also end up adding in some posters behind, you know, where I place down all them different like cakes and pastries and croissants and stuff. I do also end up placing down some posters from Simco, from like the same CC set. But I imagine in my mind that they say that, you know, like this is organic, I don't know, eggs from, you know, sometimes when you go to the supermarket and you might pick up some, say, eggs, for example, and it might be like, this chicken lived in Cambridge or something. I imagine I placed down posters that kind of like reference that behind like all the little baked good areas, but I didn't do that in the speed build, but you will see that in the screenshot section. But yeah, as you were just saying, I just finished up that section by adding in some extra like harvestables into them little wicker baskets. I kind of spoke over it, but hopefully you would have seen what I meant when I sized up the different berries in the game. They just looked a bit strange, and also by default, all the different berries, so like blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, choco berries, can't even think of the other berries that we've got in the game, but all the different berry types of fruit that we've got, when you pull them out of the build and buy category, they just stand upright, which is actually just really strange. And so, yeah, I just decided to swap them out to be different fruit and vegetables. But either way, besides the point, moving over. As you can see, I've now moved on into the next section, which is the clothing boutique. And this is the one that I tried to make a little bit more Ralph Lauren inspired. Now, I feel silly even saying this, but I'm sure you're probably familiar of the brand in real life, which is Ralph Lauren, which I think is meant to be like a polo horse racing. Do you know what? Polo horse racing is not my cup of tea whatsoever. I'm not really for it. But it is a very prestigious brand, and I actually have some CC jumpers of Ralph Lauren. And so when it came around to doing this clothing boutique, I was like, all right, well, I want to actually make this feel, authentic. I want it to feel like your Sims in the Hamptons. To me, Ralph Lauren is a very, I want to say like luxury brand. It's obviously not as luxurious because a lot of people do just have like the odd Ralph Lauren jumper or something, but it's a quite luxury brand, I would say. It's really nice. Some of the jumpers that they have got, and there is this one jumper which I have wanted, I'm not joking, for years. And I've got CC of it in the game, so that will have to do me because the real life one is like 320 odd quid. But there is like these little jumpers that have got like teddy bears on it. And you will see in a minute, I'll put them out. I had to do it. I had to make this into a Ralph Lauren shop. But yeah, to me, the brand Ralph Lauren is just very upmarket, if you get what I mean. And so when it came around to doing this clothing boutique, I tried to make it feel pretty much exactly that. Now, in terms of gameplay, this is somewhere where your Sims could use the browse and buy items kind of like function with the small business, but then also I wanted there to be some sort of initiative. Like, I want your Sims to want to come in here because realistically, let's be real, your Sims don't need to go to a clothing shop because they don't need to buy outfits. I really wish that The Sims 4 was a little bit more like The Sims 2 in the aspect of, well, actually in many aspects, but in the aspect of your Sims would have to go and actively buy some new clothing. Not sure if you ever played The Sims 2, but there was something that you could do. Like your Sims, you create them an outfit in CAS, you pop them into the world. If you want to change it up, you got to go buy your clothes. Loved it. Wish they would do that in The Sims 4, but unfortunately that's not really a feature. And so when it came around to finishing this room, I was thinking, alright, but I actually want there to be, some functionality in here. And so you will see I end up placing down some perfume bottles, which, again, this is a miniature mod, and your Sims can apply the perfume. Currently I've got 3, but in just a second I'm going to add in some more perfume bottles. The ones that I've placed down are real life like perfume and aftershave that you can actively just go and buy in the shops, but someone has made them and put them into the Sims and given them some sort of function. So in gameplay, if your Sims want to, they can apply the perfume and they will get like different moodlets depending on the perfume type. Now, there is loads of different perfumes that comes in this like little perfume miniature mod thing. It's from around The Sims 4, and there is 2 different perfume collections that I believe that I've used, but I think there is a 3rd one, but I didn't use any from that particular collection because I purposely chose perfumes and aftershaves that, one, had different like moodlets towards each other because I didn't just want to use the same like moodlet thing over and over again, but 2, I purposely chose perfumes that I feel like are a little bit more luxury in comparison to the other ones. Now, the first one that I placed down, which is in that initial like closet system, honestly, I don't even know how you say the name of the brand. I'll pop a picture of what the perfume bottle looks like because you might recognise it in like real life. Very fancy brand, smells lovely. I have not got one of these perfumes, but once I stayed at a hotel and they had soaps of this brand, I've still got the soap. I'm not joking. I've actually kept that soap and I left it in the drawer that I keep all of my letters and my passport in. And every single time I open up that drawer, even now, and I stayed in this hotel maybe about 2.5 years ago, every single time I open up that drawer, it still smells. It's a beautiful smell. Don't know what it is, but it's lovely. But either way, there is this brand. I also end up placing down a Calvin Klein one, and then I think also in this little closet system over here, I end up placing down, I think it was meant to be a Estee Lauder one or potentially a Dior bottle. It looks very Dior-y, but I think it is a Estee Lauder one. And then also the last one that I placed down, which is actually the only one that you physically see me place down, and I'll tell you why in a second, but I placed down this Penhaligon aftershave perfume. I can't lie to you, I just looked up the pronunciation for it. It's way too fancy for me to say. Apparently, the Queen used to wear it. Bless her. But it's quite a fancy perfume, and I've seen these in the shops. Like sometimes when I go into Harrods or something, not that that's a regular occurrence, but I have seen it in Harrods, and it's a couple of quid, let's just say that. And I just felt like it was very fancy for this little clothing boutique that I'm building. But I end up placing down some more perfume and aftershaves, which you don't see, purely because you can see already I've started incorporating some like little shoes into this unit. But the thing is, the shoes that I've used, love them dearly, use them a lot in my own personal builds, but they are from Charlie Pancakes from the Lavish collection. But when you place it down into a build, by default, without you even doing anything, your Sims will then automatically take their shoes off when they enter inside of whether it be a house or a building. Now, in some situations, love this feature. It's actually something that initially I believe was introduced with the Snowy Escape expansion pack, but I believe since then they altered like a base game shoe rack to make it so if you want to, you can get your Sims to take their shoes off when they enter a building, or maybe if they want to, put on some slippers. Lovely jubbly. But the thing is, when it came around to playtesting this build, I turned off the function so your Sims would basically keep on their shoes on this venue, alright? Because I'm thinking you're in what I'm picturing to be like the next upcoming hotspot in Brindleton Bay. Your Sims, they're going to the farmer's market, they're going to eventually the flower shop when I next get around to build it. Your Sims, they're doing pottery, all these different things. I don't want your Sims to be walking around with their toes out. And so when it came around to playtesting, I toggled this thing on and off so many different times, and it just would just not let my Sims keep their shoes on. And suddenly enough, do you know what, I've had enough, and I deleted it, and I replaced them different shoe clutter with extra perfumes and just random little knickknacks that made more sense and basically didn't make it so your Sims' toes wouldn't be out when they're visiting this small business lot type. But either way, as well as that in the downstairs, I just finished up placing down a few different like clothing pieces, a few different jumpers. I also did place down some jewellery, which the jewellery that I placed down, like the jewellery displays, they are from Lilac Creative, and they have like a little jewellery shop CC pack. Beautiful for this build, so I popped that down. Unfortunately, the jewellery displays don't really add any function. It's more so for kind of like storytelling and like screenshot perspective, but like I said, there is some functionality in this little clothing boutique. Your Sims can visit here and they can choose from multiple different perfumes. Like I said, I chose ones that have kind of got different moodlets. Off memory, there is a confident one, a flirty one, a fresh one, which I don't even know what that means, but there is a few different moodlets that your Sims can get. But yeah, unfortunately your Sims can't wear the jewellery, but I don't really mind. I just kind of like it for decoration. But either way, as you can see, I've now moved on to the upstairs portion of the clothing boutique, and I'm just coming in and basically just furnishing some more spaces. I completely spoke over it and it's just occurred to me in my mind, but I did also place down some mannequins into this clothing boutique, which, fun fact, all of the clothes apart from one pair of trousers is actually just in-game items. The majority of the mannequins are downstairs, but you can see there is also an extra 2 on the upstairs level. Starting off with these ones because they are on the screen. This lovely little outfit with a green jumper and kind of like a beigey orangey kind of skirt, that is from the, and I always butcher this name, Incheon Arrivals. Sorry, that's probably dreadful, isn't it? That's probably a really bad pronunciation, but it is one of the best clothing kits, in my opinion, in the game. I did use custom content shoes, but you've got to bear with me. Some of the Maxis shoes that we have in the game don't really cut it for my personal cast preference. But yeah, all the outfits apart from one pair of trousers on a mannequin downstairs are just in-game items. Honestly, I feel like the Sims with their clothing recently, they've really upped the game. And in this row we can see there is also kind of like a masculine mannequin. That clothing set that he's wearing, I say he, it's an object, it's a bit of plastic, but that is from the Businesses and Hobbies EP. Lovely little like tunic jumper with a lovely little trench coat. It's got some like ruddy kind of trousers, and then I also did place down some loafers on him. The loafers are custom content. I will be linking the CC shoes and then also that one pair of trousers that I've used in this build in a Google Doc link. But I think off memory I saw somewhere that when you download a build off the gallery, or if you download a build from somewhere, the mannequin outfits don't apparently transfer, which bit annoying, but I will still be linking you the CC shoes that I've used, and then also yeah, the CC one pair of trousers. Might be a bit confusing because it's not even on the screen, but downstairs it is the second mannequin in from the left, I believe. But yeah, I just placed down some white little pant trousers. To be honest, I probably could have just used some that we got from the game, but I really like the ones that I've used from a custom content pack. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I'm now just coming in and decorating the changing rooms for this little boutique. Now, honestly, the changing rooms are a little bit silly because your Sims, they don't have to buy clothes, but we can play pretend. And I also think for screenshot potential, this is lovely. I did also place down a little seating area outside of the changing rooms, which you best believe in my game, all of my Sims partners are going to be sitting on them sofas waiting for them in the changing rooms, because just honestly, I feel like you go to any shopping centre and you're standing outside the changing rooms and there is just a line of more so boyfriends and they're just waiting for their partner on the, on the inside of their changing rooms. But I wanted to have some sort of little waiting area, because a lot of the times in shops there is somewhere for you to sit and wait for someone whilst they try on their clothes. But either way, I finished up that room, and now I've moved on into the last shop in this venue, which is the flower shop. So in here, I actually ended up using the same wallpaper that I used in the cafe. But you know, I said this new wallpaper that I've got from Suki, really hope that's how you pronounce their name, but this new wallpaper has got so many different variations, and there are so many different colour swatches, and it is one of the most like swatched up wallpapers that I've got in my game. Honestly, this is just one of the options. It is so lovely, and this particular pattern also comes in multiple different colourways. But in here, I wanted it to feel like some sort of florist. I wanted the idea of your Sims that come to this little complex and they maybe want to buy a fresh bouquet of flowers, maybe to put on their kitchen island, or maybe your Sims are getting married and maybe your Sims want to, maybe your Sims want to visit the farmer's market to start off with and buy their wedding cake, because that little cake of break, that's a mouthful, but that little miniature mod that I placed down in the end in the grocery market, your Sims can buy a wedding cake from. So maybe your Sims will visit here and they can go and buy their little wedding cake, and they can pick and choose what they want, and then they can come into the florist and choose the flowers that they're going to walk down the aisle to. Oh, I love that idea. That's actually so lovely. And again, it just gives you more of a purpose to visit this venue and actually go through the effort of going through a loading screen. But you would have seen it just now. I placed down some individual bouquets into this little shelving unit, and the ones that I placed down aren't my favourite, I'm not going to lie to you. And I also do try my luck at placing them down on the other side of the room, but then in the end you'll see I end up replacing them with something else. But basically, they are the different wedding bouquets that your Sims can buy in the game from the Tartosa little wedding bouquet shop. And they're nice because your Sims can, they can use them in gameplay, but they just ain't cutting it. I just don't really like the look of them in comparison to some of the CC flower bouquets and little baskets and vases and stuff that I've got of flowers. They just don't even come close to it. And so I initially tried to place them down into this first shelving unit, but then I tried to think, hang on, I don't actually really like that. And so I placed them down to the other side of the room, and then you'll see near the end I do delete them and replace them with something else. But over here, as you can see, I tried to be so mindful with the clutter in this room, like how I have been through all the rest of the rooms all the different shops, community sections, venues, whatever you want to class them as, all the different spaces in this build. Like I said, I've been trying to be very mindful of the clutter and not wanting to overpower it. But when it came around to the flower shop, it was so hard, because you think about it, you place down a plant, it's got multiple different leaves, sometimes it's got flowers, and sometimes the flowers have got petals, and all of a sudden you've only placed down 3 or 4 plants or flower decorations, and you've already clogged up a room. And so when it came around to doing the florist, I was thinking, oh god, I don't want to overdo it. And so in the end, I do really like the end result, but it was a little bit of a process and a little bit of a trial and error kind of situation. But I feel like it's still sophisticated, it's still very neat and put together, but on the same token, it still does also feel like a florist. In the florists that I've been to in the past, and the only 2 that I can think of memory are kind of small businesses, but the ones that I've been to, normally they're quite small and cramped rooms, and no shade, but sometimes they're a little bit hectic on the inside. You'll walk in and there'll be random stems of roses cut off, and there'll be random pliers and loads of different leaves just dotted about on the floor, because a lot of the businesses that I've been to, a lot of the florists, they are small businesses, and so their workspace is also the retail space. And although I like the idea for a small business to have a flower shop, I didn't want it to be too much in this flower shop. But over here, as you can see, I'm currently coming in and cluttering up this little side table, which looks like a woodworking table, but no, it's actually just a side table in the game. One of the things I added into this room that kind of improves the functionality of this one particular area is I placed down 2 flower arranging tables. So if you fancy in gameplay, your Sims can visit here. Maybe they want to buy their wedding bouquet. Maybe they just want to buy a lovely fresh bouquet of flowers just for the kitchen island. But then after that, if they want to, they can also maybe make something on the flower arranging table themselves. Currently, the swatch of the flower arranging table that I placed down, it's kind of matching that little back wall unit where, I've got them little plates that are a little bit woven, a little bit cutesy. It kind of matches the colour swatch of that, but then I end up toning down the wood colour on the flower arranging table. But I did that when I was playtesting. I I liked it when I was furnishing and when I was building, but yeah, when it came around to playtesting and taking the screenshots, I decided that I wanted it to be a little bit of a lighter wood tone. But also in here as well, I ended up placing down some little like seed boxes and like some open books, and also some like little plant pots of potential flowers or maybe things that are yet to be sprouted or something. I really hope you don't mind, and I was also in two minds about it myself, but I did decide to use the same kitchen counters in the flower shop as what I did in the farmer's market, purely because in the farmer's market I loved it. It was just so, it looked so organic in there, I just loved it. But then when it came around to doing the florist, it was also kind of like the perfect kitchen counter to use in this room, and I also used it in the same swatch. I liked the blue in the supermarket just because it felt very, I just want to supermarket-y, but in this room I had the blue wallpaper, and these kitchen counters, even though the wallpaper and the kitchen counters are from two different creators, the wallpaper, like I said, is by Suki, and the kitchen counters are from Felix Andre from the Groove set. Even though they're different creators, the blue tones are kind of like perfect, and they just kind of match each other. But other than that, I'm pretty much going to go around this room and finish it off by making some final touches, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you could search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.